The bottom line is people are suffering. The misinformation is false narratives that are often sold to the general public. Sometimes it's done by lack of knowledge. Sometimes it's done on purpose, I think.
The fear of homeless people is like the fear of a bear to some people. And I just think that the headlines a lot of times amplify that fear. For what? For ratings?
What are some bad perceptions about those experiencing homelessness?
That they choose it.
That they're all drug addicts.
Yep.
They're lazy, they're dirty, they're thieves.
Just get a job.
We've actually had some of our guests that have come to me and shared with me that I used to be that guy who said, why don't you just get a job, or what's wrong with you? And here they are, and they had done nothing wrong.
How does bad policy manifest itself in ugly ways?
If we criminalize homelessness, then we have every reason not to fix it. Doesn't this look like it's just meant to round up the homeless? Because the president actually used those terms and from his office, round them up, which always sounds to me like we're rounding up a bunch of cattle. These are human beings. Oh, by the way, Christian leaders, those are souls, and they are his, and they were made in his image. I think there's good things happening, not because of policy, not because of our leadership, but because there's people that volunteer, support, and donate things to places like Matthew's Hope that are doing some pretty spectacular things.
Hi everyone, I'm Tracy Lewis from Imagine Marketing. I'm joined by Pastor Scott, who is the founder and CEO of Matthew's Hope, as well as Shelley Bradford, who is the president and executive director of Matthew's Hope. This podcast is produced, filmed, and edited by John Burkett with Imagine. Welcome to this week's episode of Straight Talk, No BS with Matthew's Hope, presented by Imagine Marketing. At Imagine Marketing, we put in the extra effort to craft a tailored strategy for success. We also offer photography, videography, and even podcast production services. Book a free consultation today. In this episode, we will be discussing homelessness in America, and we celebrate our 250th anniversary. The good, the bad, and the ugly. We want to end on a positive note today, so we're going to save the good for last. So let's start with the bad and the ugly and how they relate. Before we dive into the bad, here are a few numbers to consider. HUD estimates that on a single night in 2025, nearly 750,000 people in America were experiencing homelessness. To help you visualize that, it is nearly equivalent to the entire population of Seattle.
Wow.
More than 260,000 of those people were unsheltered. And according to HUD's long-term comparison since 2013, chronic homelessness has increased by 81%. Can we agree that this is all bad?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, well, the first comment I'm going to make is that, and it's my belief based on what we do and the number of people we serve, that number could be off at least 25%. It's at least 25% higher. And I have no doubt about that. Everything about that, those are bad, but the truth, if the full truth were out there, and I'm not going to suggest that someone's hiding the truth. I'm saying that it's very difficult with how that truth is found to be able to figure out who's all homeless. We go through the point in time count. We've talked about that in previous editions. And the challenge with it this past year was in Brevard. Brevard showed, I think, 1,080 that were covered in the point in time count, and yet our own number for that same period was 1,753. That's not suggesting anybody did a bad job at all. In fact, I will tell you the Brevard Homeless Coalition did the most amazing job I've ever seen them do. However, for all of us, it was much more difficult with the new laws in place to find these people, to give the count. It was harder due to the fear of giving us information was going to create a problem for them of them being possibly incarcerated. So everything about it with some of the new laws has made it a lot tougher.
What are some bad policies in regards to homelessness?
I mean, HB 1365 is a real bad one. I mean, I don't know the right term to call it today, but it's the reality is Arresting people for camping when you're homeless, you're not camping. You've heard us say that 1,000 times. Um, the it how is that helping somebody who's homeless? That's you're gonna arrest them to give them more fines that they can't pay to put that's not helping get them out of homelessness. That's helping keep them where they are. That's I don't see where that is a good policy at all.
And I don't think that law was designed at all to help anybody, though. Some of our legislators went out of their way to talk about how good this
And
was
make
going to
sure
be,
that
to
we
make sure
knew.
people got
Yeah.
mental health care, and they got in front of the different type of things that they needed. It was sold hard.
Mhm.
Um, None of that ended up being in this unfunded mandate. Um, so it just exasperated the whole situation, made it that's just that much worse.
What are some bad perceptions about those experiencing homelessness?
That they choose it.
That they're all drug
That's
addicts.
yep.
That we hear about now. There's some people go on rants about they're all mentally ill. They're lazy. They're dirty.
Mhm.
They're thieves.
Just get a job.
Just get my favorite. Just get a job. Yeah, great. You know what? If that thought it would take that, I'd open up a job. What do you call it?
Headhunting service
Headhunting
or
type of
whatever,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, for the homeless. Yeah, there you go. Uh, there's God. The misinformation is false narratives that are often sold to the general public, sometimes by accident. An example I would give, and I probably have shared this before, is there's occasion I am interviewed a lot for various things on TV, magazines, papers, whatever. Um, One of the things that we hear about on the news sometimes is when they talk about a homeless person who um, burnt down a house. And I'm going, no, that was an arsonist that burnt down a house that happened to be homeless. Arsony is a form of mental illness. So you have to keep going back and say it. Sometimes it's not what was said, it was how it was said that presents a false narrative. Sometimes it's done by lack of knowledge. Sometimes it's done on purpose, I think.
Mm.
I think there's times politicians will use any kind of good information to make a suggestion that all is well, rather than saying, hey, we're making progress in this area. We got a lot of work to do. They come across as more like, no, there's not a problem.
You mentioned one example of a bad headline about homelessness. What about headlines such as, "We are going to clean up the streets"?
I think that that is, um, giving our public a hope of something that is not true. We're putting out there something that you can't just you can't just sweep people off the street. Where are they gonna go? And so you're telling the public out there, "We're gonna clean up these streets." What does that mean? Where are these people gonna go? Where do you expect them to go?
And the other side of that is you're making a suggestion that the streets are a complete mess. You want to scare people out of downtown, make it real simple. Talk about how the homeless are taking over.
Mhm.
Again, that is just not true. I have traveled all over the world. There are places you should not be. Okay. And if you're there, then dumb you. Okay. You should have not gone down that street. But as a general whole, the homeless are pretty harmless. Have people been approached in public? Yes. Have they been approached aggressively at times? Yes. But that's just a very small picture. And what happens is people take that and make it sound like that's
What
the
it
norm.
is.
It's not.
Yeah.
What is bad about the state of our housing options in America?
I don't even know how to answer that.
Just being affordable.
Yeah.
I mean, really just being, again, we talked about it a little bit in our previous episode uh, about affordability and
Attainability.
attainability.
Yeah.
And when you look at that, it all plays together. We have the president, didn't sign the bill, but it did go into the housing bill did go into place. Basically, because he sat on it, he called it a yawn compared to what he thought was more important, which again I think is very disrespectful because there's a lot of people out there that have served our country in whether they were a soldier or back home waiting for them to come back, they served our country, that are going through some really tough times. It's not a yawn. It should be a priority, and it should be treated as such and with respect every time you mention it. Um, you know, I live in Florida. Yes, I've traveled the world, but I live in Florida. And what I can tell you in Florida is, again, we sit on a lot of housing that are just sitting there empty. And we have a lot more empty houses than we do have homeless people. But we got to figure out how to make it work. And a lot of these laws that are being put into place contradict each other. I mean, even when the HB 1365 was yet a bill, and we went up to Tallahassee and spoke to people like Randy Fine and a couple others, and we said to them, what's the, you know, doesn't this look like it's just meant to round up the homeless? Because the president actually used those terms and from his office, round them up. Okay, which always sounds to me like we're rounding up a bunch of cattle. These are people, these are human beings. Oh, by the way, Christian leaders, those are souls and they are his and they were made in his image. So let's play the whole God card if you want to. But ultimately, when you start using that terminology and you sit there talking about rounding up people and you talk about the fact that these people are less than, that's a problem. When you're willing to arrest people simply for falling asleep on, not even laying down on a bench, but falling asleep on it and twisting this camping law. Because when it was sold out of Tallahassee, we spoke with Randy Fine up there. What they said is this is going to force people into the services they need.
Has it?
Well, the problem is the services don't exist. I mean, he said we did it, and I go, I know we do, but we're one entity in a very large state, and our budget is half of what your entire budget is for the entire state. They said there were going to be encampments built that Department of Children and Families would oversee. I'm unaware of any of those being built or even planned anywhere. They were going to have showers. They were going to have bathrooms, sewage, security. They were going to have mental health care, medical care. They were going to have addiction program, all these things. And that was going to force them into, well, first off, let's call reality. And I had people get all excited. Oh, they're going to finally get the help they need. I go, from where? These things don't exist and they're not being funded. So not only did not exist as just a nonprofit like us is scrambling to try to stay alive to help, but it doesn't even exist. So you have to at least get somebody. If the government is not going to use our taxpayer money to create these things, where's that money supposed to come from? People look at Matthew's Hope sometimes and they go, oh, I want this. We want to bring this to our city. And when I tell them that I used my 401k to start it and didn't pay myself for 5 years anything and only took a housing allowance the next 2 years, the enthusiasm level dies really, really quick. Okay, because they want this and they need this. But when I tell them, hey, I started out with socks and underwear, getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, going down the labor pool, trying to identify who was homeless, that the shiny part of it comes off really, really quick. But that's the truth.
Yeah,
that's how it happened. So most people aren't going to take that risk. I'm not sure why I did, but again, if the taxpayers come together with who they're paying, the taxpayer-funded public servants, public-private sector come together, we should be able to do and try to figure out how to launch these things. And if we're going to stand behind a microphone in the public and tell our supporters that this is what we're going to do, let's carry it through. But I haven't seen one of those yet. If you're aware of something, I'm not.
Let's move on to the ugly. How does bad policy manifest itself in ugly ways?
I feel like we've already kind of beat that one up.
Yeah, we did. But, I think here's some things that people don't consider. Okay. This is a big one for me. Those of you that have heard my story or know my story or watched my episode that they talked me into doing a little while back know that I was molested as a kid. And my struggle, anytime I come across a sexual predator, is I want to paint you orange, put a siren on you so you do not hurt anybody else. The other side of it is they're a human being, and God has called me to care for them. So that's why I call myself sometimes a reluctant servant, but I do it because that's what he's called me to do. What's interesting, a sidebar to this ridiculous law, was it used to be we all knew where the sexual predators were.
Just
Every one of my advocates knew, my mobile teams, our management team, we all knew where they were. The police knew where they were because they would take them there and say, here's some other guys that have the same offense, and everybody, because they're trying to be low key. They're trying not to get any trouble. They're going straight back to jail or prison. Well, now what that's done is scattered them everywhere, everywhere. And so when people used to say, not in my backyard, no, they were in your neighborhood. Now they're in your backyard. Again, trying to pretend that this law was going to be this sweeping thing that was going to clean up homelessness. Oh boy, they wanted to get homelessness off the streets. There was no plan past that, and there was no funding to do anything about it. We were sold another lie. But that's common out of Tallahassee. I mean, I lived long enough to where we were told that, our school system was always struggling in Florida. So we did the lottery, and the lottery was going to supplement the school system, and therefore we'd have enough money to bring our schools and education level up. And the minute we got the lottery, they took away the other funding. So we've been down this path before, but unfortunately we have people that are willing to continue to take the gun and put it in their mouth and pull the trigger again. You stop. What have they said to you before that was true or untrue, and move from there? And so the ugly that comes from it is all of a sudden now we have predators everywhere. We have people with mental illness roaming our streets with no hope of any kind of service. We have children living in cars, living in the woods, living behind buildings, bouncing from hotel to hotel as they get money. I mean, this is what we've taken a bad situation and we've simply made it worse. We took a small fire and we've turned it into a frickin' blaze. We threw gasoline on it, and that's just the truth. And I defy anybody, and I invite any public official to come on here and tell us how I'm wrong, and tell us what you're doing about it. Not what you're going to do, what you're doing. You've had plenty of time. It's October 1st of 2024. It is well into halfway this year is gone already. So we're going to come up on the 2-year anniversary since this went into effect, and nothing. The other side of it too is it also affected how some things were funded. So a lot of funding was pulled also, and that made more ugly.
Shelley, how do poorly crafted headlines lead to ugly treatment of those in our community that are the most vulnerable?
Well, I mean, we've talked about, the arsonist, we've talked about things like that. There are times whenever we'll see headlines where people will say the homeless man did this to this person, or the homeless men on the street. And then that just brings fear into our community. That's what I see a lot. We have said on other podcasts that most of the time panhandlers are not homeless. That is a job for them. But people think it's always going to be homeless people that are doing it. And the fear of homeless people is like the fear of a bear to some people. And I just think that the headlines a lot of times amplify that fear. For what? For ratings?
Well, I think also I think there's people who perpetuate this, and some of them are elected leaders. We, like I said, I've said it a few times recently. I'm dying the fact that we're talking about communism again. The McCarthy era. I mean, come on, we've already played that one before. There's not communism spreading across our country, and any of you idiots that think that are spreading that word, shame on you. Okay, that's just not happening. It's the same type of thing. If it can draw your attention off something, okay, we're drawing your attention away. Yeah. Look over here. Look over here. Meanwhile, this is going. Look over here. Look over here. Okay, it's if we criminalize homelessness, then we have every reason not to fix it. We have okay, and everybody's going to agree. Yeah, these people are helpless. Okay. The reality of it is that, no, we have a mental illness problem more than anything, because those are the people you're seeing out there.
Is it fair to say that fear often prevents people from having empathy?
Dear God, yes.
Absolutely.
I think that is the greatest creator of people having. I wish, you and I talk about it all the time. Shelley becomes my sounding board sometimes because I get so frustrated by the nasty. John hates it when I say nasty gram, but the nasty grams that I get and people writing me and telling me that I'm the sole cause perpetuating homelessness, and all we're done with the buses is make it more possible for the criminals to have a place to hide and do their drugs and all this kind of stuff. And they stir that up. And then you watch the news, and all of a sudden, a guy who happens to be homeless is involved with a crime, then it's all their fault. When we first moved to our campus here and opened this new campus here in Cocoa 4 years ago, the whole big thing was how much crime was going to go up and property values were going to go down. Well, crime has done nothing but go down since we've been here, and property values have gone up. So I can't say we had anything to do with that other than the fact that we certainly can't blame for something that didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
But people are still saying it, even though that if you go down to your local chief of police and ask, because it's public record, you can ask for it, you will see what kind of crime is not happening in your community. Mm-hmm. And it just isn't. It just isn't. But again, it's easier to blame on that because then you can try to force that for your narrative can force where you want it to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And we live in a country right now that apparently if you say it often enough, it's the truth.
It makes it so.
Yeah. Despite the president often referring to affordability as a, quote, Democrat hoax, rising costs continue to be a major issue for Americans. Cost of living increases sound bad, but how ugly are they when you look at real impacts on real people and families that you serve?
I mean, the truth is just the gas prices alone are crippling even for people we don't serve. I mean, everything has gone up so much. So then the people that were living paycheck to paycheck, many that work for us, that it's going to impact them and their families and their household. Mm-hmm. And there's no way around it,
Oh, it's affected our funding.
Yeah. 100%.
In a huge way, where we haven't lost funders. In fact, our base is bigger than it's ever been. It's grown continuously for 16 years. Our funders, our donors typically stick with us. What has happened though is people that gave us 10,000, a few years ago are now giving us 5,000. People were giving us $100 a month. They're now giving us 50 or 25.
25, yeah.
Because they're struggling too. The bulk of our financial support comes from individuals and small businesses. You think it would be the wealthier people and big business. No, it's small business, it's smaller churches, and it's everyday middle class and lower class people that support us financially. Mm. And they're taking it in the teeth right now. And again, that's part of the bad. It's part of the ugly. Excuse me. Bad policy is creating this kind of stuff. Then you throw on, we've been to war with Venezuela. We've been on to war with Iran. We have ticked off the Canadians. We have managed to really tell everybody, go take a hike. Here's what I do know about why that's bad policy. Years ago, I didn't look like this. I was in great shape and I fought a lot, physically fought a lot. I was fine as long as I was in a room with one other person. The problem is all of a sudden you get those three scrappy guys on one big guy, the big guy's going down. Okay? When you're supposedly the leader of the free world, you're the biggest badass on the block, but you alienate everyone across the world, you are putting yourself in a tough spot. I hate getting that political, but that ties into all this. Is we're wrapped up into things that are creating bigger problems here at home. And again, people can sit there and deny it all the time. I invite you, first off, again, I will let anybody come on this podcast that can show us better or show us something that is not, that contradicts and has backing to what I'm saying. You don't have to agree with us. All I ask, same thing I ask my kids. You guys have heard me say this before. I'm not going to tell you what to believe theologically or politically. What I'm going to ask of you is that you understand why you believe it and you're able to articulate it. Because is not a reason. And the thing is, I hear two things every time we talk about politics. It's, well, because, or, well, when Biden was president, or when Obama was president. The other day I had somebody in my office, and it was a volunteer that had created some issues. And I was talking with him, and he goes, this guy was 55 years old or so. And he says, well, Larry did this. And I go, Larry's not here. I'm talking to you. The bottom line is, you're in charge of you.
Mm-hmm.
We put people in office that aren't in charge of us, but they are responsible for what they do. Why are we talking about what happened? And here's the other thing. When we talk about the growing, because you mentioned about the growing population, different things that were going on, why didn't we solve this during his first 4-year term? But to be fair, why didn't Obama solve it? Why didn't Biden solve it? Quite honestly, it's both sides of the aisle. It really is. It doesn't help that we have millionaires, and most of these people are millionaires that are supposed to understand how the average Joe lives. Mm-hmm. First off, they spend most of their time in Washington. They wouldn't know how we're living. Come on. So I think those are things that are important to understand when you're talking about the good, bad, and the ugly. That is an ugliness that creates things that, again, have turned people against each other.
Yeah.
And it's hard because when we're divided, we're weaker. And when we're weaker, we cannot deal with the challenges that are ahead of us.
Mm-hmm. Shelley, the infamous Alligator Alcatraz recently closed entirely. Estimates suggest the total cost of the venture was $1.2 billion, which averages to about $3,571 per detainee per
Good
day
God.
over its 350 days of operation. Is there anything ugly about that?
I think the whole thing's ugly. I think that the amount of money that our government spent on that, where it could have been done so much more humanely, I think the whole thing is disgusting.
What I find most interesting about it is that, I mentioned that it's, we're 4 years into getting a permit for our transitional housing in Cocoa. And in 8 days, they were able to not only find the funding for this, but able to build it. Now, I heard that they have not yet determined how much it costs to tear it all down and take it away.
But they're about
So
to
is
do
that the whole? That's all happening, right? I don't know how and when exactly it's happening, or if it's happened already, but it's we're in that time frame. But when you think about that, look, I could take $3,500
per person.
per person every 6 months and probably house them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It was insane at best. My feelings are, again, if, we have an immigration problem, we have had an immigration problem, and neither party has addressed it for decades. At least the last 50 years, we haven't done any changes to it. So that's the one problem we have. The other thing, though, if you're going to deport someone, deport them.
Right.
What is the need to cage people in an inhumane way, and then make a joke out of it about? Just the fact that they called it Alligator Alcatraz. That's insensitive at best. Yeah. I used to have an amazing respect for DeSantis. I had read his bio years ago and went, holy smokes, look at this guy's record. If you read it on paper, it's like, holy cow, he should be in charge of everything. I don't know what's happened. I really don't, other than that, they've been blamed on corruption. Again, that story keeps disappearing. I don't know. And I don't care if you voted for him. I did. Look what I got. I'll take responsibility where responsibility is due. I made a mistake. I would never do it again. And it's a shame because when you think of what could have been done for money they say we don't have.
Yeah.
Now, here's the most interesting part about that also, is originally it was only supposed to be $600 million, and that $600 million was going to be reimbursed by the feds. And now the feds are saying, we ain't paying that.
Yeah.
So guess who's paying for it?
Mm.
Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Taxpayer. Welcome to you paying for it.
Right.
It's insane. It's insane. And people are happy about it. It's like, here's the sad part. A lot of these people making these policies and stuff and rooting them on are going to be dead before we find the full effect on them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even me, I'm 64 years old. By the time we see the full effect this has had, there's a good chance I won't be here. But that doesn't mean it's not my responsibility. It's all of our responsibility that we leave anything we found better than
And we
found it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I believe that, have always believed that. And I just don't understand how people can be so insensitive and so tied up into this, whatever it is. I don't even know what to call it. The bottom line is people are suffering. And I find what's one of the interesting things that happens here is we've actually had some of our guests that have come to me that have had a successful life and shared with me that I used to be that guy who said, why don't you just get a job?
Mm-hmm.
Or what's wrong with you? Or what mistake did you make? And here they are, and they had done nothing wrong.
Right.
Ma.
That's ugly too.
That is very ugly. So let's see if we can find some good to end on. Is there anything about our current homelessness crisis that is good, or at least good compared to the previous points in time?
The numbers went down.
I knew he was going to laugh.
Ah,
at this.
God, she had to say that. They did not go down, but supposedly the last 2 years, according to the point time count. And again, I want to be very clear on this. This is not someone's failure.
No.
This is a failure of the system that didn't allow us to do the count the way it needed to be done. Okay. The good, it's really hard to find anything good in homelessness. I think there's good things happening, not because of policy, not because of our leadership, but because there's people that volunteer, support, and donate to places like Matthew's Hope that are doing some pretty spectacular things. It's a shame that a lot of the general public does not understand how much nonprofits play a role. I hear people, they should be paying taxes, blah, blah, blah. Well, wait a minute, come over here, hang out with us. Let us tell you how and show you how this works. I get the frustration of people, but keep in mind too, is nonprofits can only do what they're allowed to do. Matthew's Hope, because of the way we're funded, we're able to quickly pivot to the right or to the left because we're not bogged down with these taxpayer funded grants and stuff. We have a few, but they're very specific in how we do it, where others are tied to that, and it ties their hands very clearly to how things can be done. And it does make it tougher. Mm-hmm. But I think if the general public had a real sense of what nonprofits are doing and what the kind of money that it takes to do what we do, they would be stunned.
Shelley, do you feel we are making good progress educating people on what homelessness really looks like?
I really do. I meet people all the time that I've never seen or known of before that know all about us. And they talk to me about what they've learned on each podcast. And that's really what I was hoping we would achieve, is for people to just get a better knowledge of homelessness in general. And, why support people like Matthew's Hope? Why support these nonprofits? And I mean, people stop me because I live in Winter Garden. People stop me all the time and go, "Oh, I know who you are." And I'm like, "Well, that's cute."
Yeah. Yeah.
That didn't start happening to me until the last couple of years ago.
I tried to warn her that it would.
Yes.
I can't tell you how many confessions I've heard in the Publix aisle.
Yeah.
People that have been mad at me, didn't know me, mad at me, mad at Matthew's Hope, said things, and all of a sudden they see us walking down the aisle, they see the logo, and all of a sudden, I can't tell you how often people have welled up and said, "I am so sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I bought into whatever so-and-so was saying. I bought into whatever this person was saying. I've watched you. I've watched Matthew's Hope. Thank you for what you're doing."
Yeah.
I think that we're not looking for a pat on the back. We're just not looking for a kick in the teeth all the time. I think that I'm very proud of what we've done. but we have a lot of work left to do. Um, we're going to continue to, though Charlene begs me all the time, can we, Scott, can you just, it's more of her thinking of me saying, Scott, can you slow down? You're getting older, blah, blah, blah. I hear all that. I get it. And I understand her concern, but the truth is I don't see me laying it down until I just can't anymore, because we also get to see the Katie stories, the Shannon stories, the Jacob stories, the Sherry stories. I mean, I can stay here all day and give you one spectacular story after another. I had a volunteer the other day says, well, we never see what good happens. We only see this stuff. And I go, do you watch the podcast? Do you read our Moving Forward magazine? Do you follow us on social media? Because we share the stories all the time. I mean, there is nothing better than when we can sit there and find out that, one of our guests got their sight back. I mean, how could
those stories keep us going?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
They really do. As new employees come on, one of the things we say to them all the time is saying, you're going to see a lot of hurt and dysfunction. And there's days you're going to walk out of here and sit in your car and cry. But if you hang in there, you're going to see some amazing things that, honestly, I sometimes have referred myself to almost like a voyeur of God's providence, where he's allowed me to see things that I don't think I was supposed to see. Just kind of peek behind the curtain and you go, oh my God,
Yeah.
how amazing is that? Even when people leave early, often what happens with folks is they kind of feel like they got it together and they're ready to go. And we don't talk them out of it, because if they talk them into staying and it doesn't go the way they thought, it's our fault.
Yeah.
But to watch them succeed after they leave and take what they've learned and heard and walked at Matthew's Hope, so that's the good. The good is out there. Trust me, the good is out there. And there's a lot of good people out there. And I think back years ago when I was in my sales and marketing career, we've all used this example. How do you eat an elephant? You eat it one bite at a time. If you just look at the elephant, you're going to be overwhelmed and walk away.
Yeah.
So take the bite that you were meant to take, whether it's a small bite, a big bite, take a bite. If we all take a bite, that elephant's gone in no time. And homelessness is a big elephant in the room. And no one's ever going to agree 100% of how it should be addressed. What we need to do is look at what hasn't worked and move on. Repeating it over and over again is completely that's insanity. That's the very definition of insanity. So we have to take the good at what we see did work. We eliminate the bad that didn't work or that needs to be adjusted. I can't tell you how often we will launch an initiative of one kind or another that we've added to our portfolio of things that we do, and we get a little down the road and we go, we didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
So we shifted to the right, we shifted to the left. Sometimes you shoot it between the eyes and move on. We have to have that mentality if we really want to address this. And if I won't be here for the next centennial. I was here for the bicentennial. I lived through the what do they call this one? Bi and a half?
Sure.
Centennial.
Really?
I'm not sure what we call the two, but I've been here to see the 250th anniversary of our independence. I think we all need to take a moment and really understand what that means and what it means for all of us. Not just what it means for me, what it means for our neighbor. Where'd we come from? How did we get here? The truth is, if life wasn't as ugly as it is, there would be American Indians walking all over this place, and there would be no podcast today. It would be a different world. We live in a world that take or be taken. We've kind of gotten past a lot of that in this particular century. But now it's trying to figure, okay, now we're here. How do we protect and how do we perfect this little thing we call an experiment of democracy? And who's it good for? And who is allowed to stand in line?
Shelley, when America celebrates its 300th birthday in 2076, what do you hope people will say about how we treated those experiencing homelessness? And what legacy should we be working towards today?
I think about Matthew's Hope's legacy all the time and who we bring on. I really am hoping that Matt, I'm just going to answer through Matthew's Hope's legacy. I'm hoping that Matthew's Hope's legacy will continue on and people will see how we have treated these people with dignity and respect. That is really something that I want to push towards all the time with our staff, with our volunteers. We say all the time, we don't want to preach the gospel to you. We want to live the gospel before you. And that's really the legacy that I'm hoping that we are going to leave.
Shelley, you can probably do this easier than I can. We have an acronym we're using as far as our core values go. Can you
Well, you
I'm
put
kind
me
of put
to
you on
the
the spot.
test.
Can
So yeah, we actually our core values is an owns mentality. It's an ownership mindset, witness with love, hope, and grace and mercy. And then the N is nurture dignity and respect. And S is speak truth and love.
and I bring that up because that Shelley was able to take that and work through some of the team to come up with that. I did not, but she was able to encapsulate the vision and the hope of what we are. And I do think about it. I really don't. Someone asked me what I thought about my legacy, and then I go, "Well, that's kind of an interesting thing." But I said, much like Shelley, the legacy of Matthew's Hope, I think, is again, hopefully that people will see and will remember us as a place of dignity, and not remember us, but continue to see us long after I'm gone. Um, as a place that cared. Because here's the truth. The truth is we're going to go through one administration after another every 4 years. Sometimes you get an 8-year run. But the truth is that there will be constant change always. And we have to focus on keeping the main thing the main thing. And the main thing as a ministry for us is to share that love, hope, grace, and mercy of Jesus Christ in all we do, and not beat people over the head with it, not use it as a weapon, use it as who we are. When people come here and I say, I don't want you to bring your flavor of Christianity here.
Yeah.
Um, However, if someone invites you to pray with them or invites you to talk about your faith, absolutely. And before we close here, there's one thing I've remembered since day one. When God put it on my heart, this is Scott, this is what you're going to do. And I was trying to figure out, well, what's the model going to be? Where do I look for it? So I went and I visited a lot of different places, and some of these people are gone. Some of these people don't remember me. Some of these people probably prefer not to remember me, but I went to a number of different places. And one thing I saw all the time was someone who wanted to preach the gospel, which was very lacking of the gospel, usually telling the homeless people how awful they were and why they had to give their life to Christ. They didn't tell them the good news of it. But anyhow, you had to do that in order to eat.
Wow.
And that one instant is what created the trajectory of who we are today. Because, I'm sitting there and I'd been going through seminary, and I went back to the Sermon on the Mount. Can you imagine if Jesus were to come out there and he says, "Hey, I've got these loaves and fishes, and I'm going to do some really cool things that are going to blow your mind, but I'm going to set them over here. You need to listen to me first." No, what he recognized is there was hungry people in the crowd, and he fed them, and they were compelled to ask why. They were compelled to ask who he is and why was he doing this. And that's what I want Matthew's Hope to be. Why? And we hear this question all the time. Why do you do this? So you really want to know? Let me tell you what God's done in my life. And even for the non-religious, first off, I'm not a religious guy. Those of you know me or watch this thing I'm just not. I'm a Christ follower. But, I'm going to call it like I see it. And I may not always be right, but it's how I see it. And that's why I think it's important that we have these conversations. That's why I always leave an open invitation. You can disagree with me. Come tell me why. Disagreeing with me is easy. Tell me what your plan is, okay? Because you might have a better plan, and we'll use your plan. We'll invest in your plan if you think you got a better way of doing this. And again, that's part of what makes Matthew's Hope the beauty of Matthew's Hope and what makes it good. You know, I love the good side of things. I just know that to get to good, sometimes you got to wade through the crap.
Mhm.
And right now we find ourselves in the swampland of crap.
Mm.
But we keep our eye on the prize. If he's with us, who could be against us? Let's go.
Let's go. Well, thank you to everyone for watching and listening. Please like, share, and subscribe to this podcast to help us reach a larger audience.